Ready? And we're streaming.
Are we streaming?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hi, welcome to the live chat with the Self-Driving Car Team. We're just going to introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about the course, and then answer any of the questions that you have, whether that's about the course or the future of self-driving cars or anything you're kind of curious about. So I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Cezanne Camacho. I'm a course developer here at Udacity and a computer vision expert for a self-driving car. So I've been helping create content around sort of image analysis and extracting meaningful information from video streams of driving. And we have Stephen and Drew. You can introduce yourself first.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, so I'm Stephen Welch. I'm the Student Services Lead on this Nanodegree. So I'll be answering any questions you have about services, reviews, mentors, pretty much all those.
Cool. I'm Drew. I'm the director of the Self-Driving Car and Machine Learning Team. So I help out with a bunch of random tests. So sometimes I'll run office hours. I'll help make sure all the content's good. If you have any issues, you can totally feel free to bring it up with me. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll wait for some questions from the students to come in. I have a question first for both of you, which is kind of what is the most exciting part of this course to you guys, whether that's maybe a project or something about the student community?
Well, I guess for me, the most exciting part is the student community itself and the group of reviewers and mentors that we have supporting the community. So we have, a lot of very seasoned, very expert reviewers who will be looking at the students' projects. And we have mentors who are going to be there in classroom to support the students as they're going through the program. And then we also have forum mentors who will be answering questions on the forums when students get stuck. So those are all good from my perspective. Pretty exciting.
Yeah, my favorite parts are the two deep learning projects. They're by no means easy, and I like them because they challenge people and they really show you that you can do things that are really hard and push yourself in an online program. So the two projects are you'll be classifying traffic signs, which is a task that self-driving cars do need to do to understand. Is this a stop sign? Is this a speed limit sign? What's the speed limit? Etc. Etc. And then you also, the second deep learning project is you actually do behavioral cloning. So you train an AI agent to run through a simulator. And so a car will learn to drive itself around the task. So neither is particularly easy, and you'll really grow a lot as you do that.
Okay, yeah, that's really exciting. That's the sort of technology that I imagine is being used in self-driving cars right now. I have a couple questions coming in just about the class itself and the mentors. So there's a question about, is the class self-paced, and what happens kind of if you miss a deadline?
Yeah, so I can take that one. So the class is, let me just talk about the deadline. So we have a bunch of suggested deadlines that you should have seen in your handbook. Those deadlines are meant for you to get an idea of what your pacing is to graduate on time. If the deadline is at the end of the term, and you again should have seen the end of the term date in your handbook, you have to have passed every single project. And if you haven't passed all the projects, you won't be eligible for career services in the next term, and you'll be moved back a term. So those are the consequences. If you miss a single deadline, so let's say I missed my first project deadline by a couple days, there's no immediate consequence. The consequence happens at the very end when you may not have passed all your projects on time.
Okay. All right, and then I have a question probably that you can answer about how mentors are selected. It sounds like there's a lot of great resources and ways to get feedback on projects. And I guess how can you ensure that the mentors are like the best?
Sure. So actually, most of the mentors that we currently have are students who have gone through or started the program before students in this cohort. So we had mentors at the very beginning who, most of whom were graduates from the machine learning program. And they started out, and some of those mentors will be taking students from this cohort. And then the remainder of the mentors will be students from previous cohort program. So they've sort of already gone through what you all will be going through in the program now. You'll have good advice for things to look out for, where to find resources, and things like that.
So it's very much like a college TA program where your TAs are people who graduated or who are ahead of you in the course.
Okay, makes sense. So continuing along those lines, there's a question about does anyone on the Car N&D team actually specialize in education? And I think that's along the same lines of kind of how we're creating the best content. I can sort of partially answer this as a content developer. So for Car N&D, what we're doing is kind of partnering internal instructors with industry experts. So, for example, like I have a pretty decent background in education, sort of the best techniques for teaching in an online setting, going through examples and forming quizzes. So I'm an expert in how to present that material in the best educational way. And then we also partner with industry experts to make sure we're talking about sort of the most cutting edge technologies and giving you that information. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean that hits the
The nail on the head.
yeah, that's the main point. So we help bring our expertise in making content over the last 5 years at Udacity to external partners like Mercedes-Benz and help them also create new content on their own.
Okay. There's a question about, and I think this is probably one of the more exciting pieces of the course, how are students going to be able to run their code on a real car?
So I can help answer that. So we're actually already running some student code on our car. Challenge 2 submissions just happened. So challenge 2 was you submit a neural network model that predicts steering angles. The way we do it is we've modularized our car so we can easily use ROS packages so that the car can read from a certain package and implement the signals onto the car itself based on the package. So we have a system where you can submit your code, submit your model, and we're easily able to translate that into instructions for the car. It's working right now, and it's what will happen at the end of the term when you'll break up into teams, submit your code via GitHub, and we'll download it and run it directly on the car.
Could you tell the students a little bit more about how the challenges relate to the course material?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for those who don't know, at the same time as the course, we also have we have an open source self-driving car project. And the way that works is we're trying to make an entirely open source car where you can see all the code on GitHub, and the way you contribute is determine what the steering angle would be. If you win the challenge, you get money, and you get the ability to have your code actually in the car. And all challenges are put for everyone to see on GitHub. So that's the whole challenges thing. You don't have to be a student to participate, but being a student should help you get a leg up in the challenge.
Okay. And it seems like we're maybe having a couple of audio issues, so we're trying to fix those right now.
Can you pull the mic a little closer?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and then just talk a little louder.
Yeah, sorry.
Perfect. Okay.
Is it streaming?
I see it on mine.
Okay, mine stuck.
Yeah. Thank you for your patience.
Just go check the
Okay.
comments.
It sounds like there's some really interesting and sometimes difficult projects in this course. Maybe you can talk a little bit about how critical it is that people have a little bit of coding background, or what the most valuable kind of background is to have for this course.
Steven, do you want to start that off?
Sure. So most of the course material takes place in Python. So it's not absolutely necessary that you've programmed in Python before, but having some coding experience is going to be pretty crucial for success in the program. Machine learning background helps, although we have machine learning courses, in the beginning of the program that will help students get through.
Yeah, definitely the main deliverables are all code. So if you feel like you need to brush up on your Python beforehand, go ahead and do that. We have a lot of free courses on Udacity for you to do just that, and there are plenty of resources on the internet for you to continue.
And if someone is struggling, is there a place they should really look for as far as student support to get the help they need?
Sure. Yeah. So they can definitely ask questions on the forums. We try to answer those as quickly as possible. They can reach out to their mentors. Their mentors can direct them to outside resources sometimes that are helpful for them. If they have problems with particular sections of Python or something.
We also have a Slack community. So there's a Slack community with all your fellow students, and that's been very, very active. And you'll see a different Slack community for each project, and people are more than responsive there.
Okay, great. And is the mentor feedback pretty quick to turn around?
Yeah, so it depends. We're working right now. We have mentors basically around the globe as well as students around the globe. So we're working to sort of make the feedback quicker for students and sort of sync people up better. But yeah, they should be able to reach out to their mentor and get feedback.
Okay, so you mentioned that most of this class relies on kind of Python to program things like for computer vision and maybe machine learning. Are there any other programming languages that you might recommend learning more about?
Yeah, for sure. So the second term is going to be more heavily in C++. So if you have time, go ahead and get started on C++ when you get the chance, is what I would say.
Okay. Let's see. I guess I also have a question kind of about hiring partners, how those were selected, and maybe what students can expect job-wise after completing a course like this.
Yeah, so just as a recap, some of the hiring partners we have are BMW, Next EV, Didi. We tend to have hiring partners all around the world now, and the way those relationships work is they come to us saying we need help hiring new people into our autonomous vehicle divisions. And what we do is we help select standout students from the program and present them to these hiring partners.
Okay.
So the way it works is when you do your projects, try and go above and beyond, try and do something special so that you can be recognized and get a better shot at some of these awesome hiring opportunities.
Okay, great. That's really cool. I'm thinking kind of about how self-driving cars are this new technology and an active research area, and I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit about how this content is structured to address that, to teach to this kind of changing field.
Right. I can help answer that too. So I think one of the most interesting things, like you said, is that this field is constantly evolving, and the reality is because we're so closely placed to the companies who are working on the cutting edge. So we work directly with Otto, which is now part of Uber, and we work directly with Mercedes-Benz's autonomous vehicle department, and we also work directly with NVIDIA, which has made a lot of the advancements recently in the deep learning side of self-driving cars. Because we're so connected to them, we know exactly what the latest advancements they're working on are, and we're able to stay much closer to the cutting edge than maybe we would be if we were in a university where there is much more of a lag from theory to implementation. So we've tried to put the most cutting edge technologies out there. That's why we have a big focus on deep learning in the first term, but we're confident that by working so directly with the industry, we'll be able to stay up to pace as things continue.
For deep learning specifically, I know a lot of that can be kind of computationally expensive. How are you making sure that students are able to actually successfully run this code, maybe train a neural network on their own devices or through outside resources?
Well, recently Amazon is providing Amazon Web Services credits for all of our students, and maybe you have more information about how that's happening. Or?
So every student gets $50 of Amazon credits, and if you haven't received that, we'll announce it later. But that should be more than enough for you to train most models, because Amazon costs are like 65 cents an hour. So it's plenty of resources, and you'll be able to even work on your own projects.
Wow. Okay, that's really great. I have a question from someone that's asking about hiring and kind of where along the pipeline of the course are the hiring partners actually looking to work with students to bring them in as interns or to eventually hire them? Do people have to go all the way through the course or maybe a few projects?
So we're going to start involving hiring partners with our students after the first term at the very least. So once we're confident that you've been able to do all the computer vision and deep learning content, we think you'll be at a good point. Definitely, the more advanced you go, the more and more we're going to start connecting you with hiring partners. But expect that at the end of term one, there'll be opportunities starting then.
Okay, great. And I have a question about the self-driving car scholarship. I don't know much about that. Maybe you could speak to that.
Actually, I'm not too familiar with that either. Maybe something that Stuart was sort of involved in scholarships would be able to answer and we can address after.
Okay, great. And maybe that's a question to send to our support team at self-driving-car-support@udacity.com, and I will link to that address in the chat. Okay, great. So we're still kind of waiting on some questions to trickle in. I have some questions kind of about the actual car that students are going to be deploying their code on. to me, like my initial thought is that sounds like maybe like wildly unsafe if someone has an error in their code. So how do you go about kind of checking that the code is reliable in the first place to test on a car?
No, that's a great question. And I sat in on the car when we were running a student submission yesterday. And sometimes it jerks a little. And so what we do is we have very simple
Were you
manual.
actually in the car?
Yeah. So we have
Risking his life for the students.
so we have manual overrides. If you turn the wheel like by a large amount, it overrides and you have full control again. We tend to only drive on pretty empty roads. There's also an emergency stop button where it immediately overrides that way too. So we're generally pretty cautious, and there's plenty of ways we override crazy models.
Yeah, okay, that's great. I also know that a lot of this course is very project-based. You learn a concept and then you try to apply it to a problem. And I have a question about I have a question about real-life challenges that maybe hiring partners could bring up. And sort of to bring that into how we develop content, I'm wondering about how real are these projects that we're giving them? Are they close to real-life problems, or do you think that they're going to be they're very different than what you might see in a self-driving car engineer job?
That's a great question. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I think you sort of spoke about this before. And, we've been working closely with industry partners, and the projects that we're developing are to help students gain the skills that they would need in the industry. So they should be fairly close to the kinds of things that they'll be working on, in the future.
Yeah, and we're lucky enough to have someone who was working in an autonomous vehicle department lead the program. So that's David Silver. And these are challenges that he did while at his job. So they're definitely very relevant, and the way our curriculum development process works is we come up with certain projects with the help of the industry partners, and we show it to them, say, would you hire someone who had these qualifications? Once we get a yes or a strong signal from them, we go ahead with it. So that's how we'd be coming up with the projects, and in some cases the partners themselves come up with the full project. So in the sensor fusion content, which is the second term, Mercedes is designing the full project from scratch.
Okay, that's great. So these projects are very related to real life problems. I guess could you kind of walk us through a day in the life of your job as it relates to working on R&D? Like what is your role in making this content great or this growing the student community?
Sure. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So as I said before, I'm on services. So for me, that involves getting new reviewers trained on these projects, helping to find new reviewers and getting them trained. It involves working with all of the mentors to make sure that they are able to support all of the students, all of you guys. It involves working with forum mentors to make sure that we have enough forum mentors to answer all the questions, making sure that the quality there is top notch.
Yeah, so my day-to-day involves a lot of different things. So it'll be things like making sure we have hiring partners and creating those relationships, listening to students and finding out where we can improve. So that's one thing we're very serious about, and understanding that we always have room to improve this program. So we're in Slack, we're in the forums, and we're listening, and we make changes based on your feedback. Additionally, doing things like doing all the projects myself and making sure that everything we do is something that I know and I can help with. So I was in the office hours channel yesterday helping out. So you'll see me all over the place, just making sure that the overall program is doing well.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think is something that draws hiring partners to this program as opposed to, say, recruiting in traditional academic institutions?
So I can quickly start off with the answer there. So our hiring partners are in an interesting position because they're trying to come up with new software teams from scratch, but they know these teams have to be very good at testing, quality. Basically, they want them to be somewhat experienced.
Mm-hmm.
If you do a traditional college route, you're generally picking up new grads who don't have much software experience. So what's unique about us is we're bringing not just people who are entirely new, but people with experience in the field also, and people who they can actually build teams around, given their needs for testing and quality. Our hiring partners really appreciate us for that. And our hiring partners appreciate us for the fact that students who do our nano degree come in day one much more prepared, having done a lot of the projects that someone they would have to train would do.
Yeah, I don't have much to add there.
Do you think there's an advantage to teaching this in an online setting versus like in a classroom?
Yeah, for sure. I think we're taking advantage of an online setting in interesting ways that you won't see as much in an in-person setting. So, for instance, we have really strong communities in our forums and our Slack communities where you'll see a lot of discussion, and every discussion that's had is recorded for everyone to see and everyone to use. So that's a huge positive in the way we do things online. The other thing is because everything is online, all your projects and everything you create is public for everyone to view. So rather than in person where you submit maybe a written assignment to someone and then no one else sees it, everything you do through this nano degree is public, and you're building up your portfolio and you're building up your public image of who you are because we're doing everything online.
I'd say another advantage of doing things online is the speed at which you can get feedback. In a traditional, standard brick and mortar university setting, if the whole classroom turns in their projects, it may take weeks for you to get feedback on those projects. Whereas now with reviewers and things being submitted online, we can get feedback to the students really quickly.
Yeah, and I'd say the last thing is the different kinds of people you meet in the community. Because things are online, we have less geographical boundaries, so you'll meet people from all around the world. We actually have people from over every time zone now. So we have representation from every time zone. You'll see people who you wouldn't see in a traditional university setting. For instance, people who are older, people who have kids, who might not have the time in their day to go out and do a master's or something like that. You'll see people of different income groups. So you'll see a pretty interesting mix of people that I think is much richer than what you might see just in a physical campus.
I agree. So kind of back to self-paced, reaching a wider audience and getting so many ways of getting feedback. I think that's great. I have a question about how many students are in a cohort, and specifically someone asked that initially they noticed that the cohort was limited to 250 people, and now it seems like thousands of people are there, and how does that affect the value of the nano degree, if at all?
Yeah. So, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so we started out, the first cohort was about 500 people.
First cohort was 5.
Yeah, so 500 people for the first cohort, and then I think this cohort is about 1,000 people. So yeah, so the cohorts are getting slightly larger as the program moves along, and it may seem like there are a lot of people because all of the cohorts are currently sharing, the same community in Slack, so you see students from other cohorts, but
yeah. So I view it as actually a strong advantage in that the amount of people you'll be able to get to help you out and the amount of people who are going to be there to answer your questions increases as we increase the number of people. And I think we're still at the same time giving you a one-on-one experience where everyone has a mentor who answers their individual questions. Everyone has an independent reviewer who reviews their project and gives individualized feedback. So I think as we grow, you'll see the best of both worlds, where we provide individual support and you get a bigger and bigger community of people.
Yeah, I agree with that. There is one point related to that. As our number of students grow, that is kind of a lot of students. There's a question about how many do you think will actually get a job at the end of the program? How many jobs maybe are available, and how can you really make yourself competitive in a growing pool?
Right. So I think that's a great question. We don't have a direct target of this many jobs that are going to be open and this many people should expect to get hired or not hired. What we're doing is we're aggressively increasing the number of companies who are partnering with us. Right now, I think we have over 30 companies who are hiring partners. And some of these companies are rapidly expanding their groups. So Mercedes-Benz has said they aim to double their office size here. So they're at, I think, 150 to 200, and they want to double. Ford has said they want to double their autonomous vehicle department here. So you'll see that as companies are now focused on production, they're going to start rapidly increasing the size of their team. And I believe that as we increase the number of people going through our program, we'll have more alumni in inside each of these companies, and so your avenues into these companies will increase as our network grows stronger and stronger.
I'd also add to that these skills that you learn in this class are very applicable, not just to jobs at places like our hiring partners, like things like deep learning, computer vision. And my background in computer vision is in the medical field. There's a lot of places that you can apply this knowledge that are just all very exciting technologies. So kind of along those same lines, maybe, or along the lines of making yourself competitive, someone asked, and they said they brought this question up in an earlier session as well, what would be your suggestion to make the most out of this program?
I would say definitely make use of all the resources that you have available to you as you go through the program. So, like reach out to your mentors, your reviewers, make sure that you look at the feedback carefully that you get from your reviewers, especially. Participate in all of the activities that you can while you're in the program. There's a lot of stuff going on. The challenges with the car.
Yeah. I would add that in every project we have room for you to go above and beyond. So there's past, and then we have optional things that you don't have to do. Do all the optional things. You'll see it in the first project itself. We have an optional challenge. In the traffic sign classifier, we say that you can keep trying to increase your accuracy. For the simulation, we have 2 tracks. We only require that you pass on 1 track, but to go above and beyond, you would try and do it on both tracks. So there's plenty of opportunities to show that your project is above and beyond. And the second thing I would add is we're going to start putting you in front of hiring partners towards the end of the term. Take advantage of those opportunities and really brush up your portfolio and get ready for those challenges.
Okay, that's all good advice. I have a question about if a student feels that they can't complete a project, even the first project, and they want to take some time off to learn, say, Python coding. Is there a way to push into the next cohort?
So I can answer that. We have a 2-week buffer zone at the end of every term, where if you've slipped out some deadlines, this is your time to now catch up on everything. So there's that. There is also, if you do miss, you're not able to finish all your projects by the end, you will get pushed back into the next cohort. If in the first 7 days you already feel like you're not confident, just email Self-Driving Car support, and we'll move you to the next cohort.
I'm also getting a number of questions about mentors. Some people curious about maybe how they might become a mentor and what you're looking for in that, and also a question about how many there are.
Okay.
Of all these students. Yeah.
Sure. So each mentor takes on about 20 students. That's pretty average for a mentor. I can answer that question first. And it depends a lot on the amount of time that the mentor can dedicate. So some mentors may take on a little bit more than that, and some mentors may take on a little bit less. We're looking for students who are happy to help other students. This is a fantastic opportunity to get back to the self-driving car community, to get paid a little bit for your support. So if students are interested in becoming a mentor, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to walk you through it, to tell you more about the program. There was an announcement in the announcement channel on the student Slack, I think yesterday, and I'll make another announcement today, about steps that you can take to find out more about the program. But yeah, definitely be happy to have this.
Yeah, definitely. There's another question about how do you keep track of whether a student has completed a challenge part of a project. Do reviewers take note of it, or how is that recorded?
So reviewers do take note of it, and they let us know when they found submissions that are outstanding. So.
Okay, yeah, simple answer. There's a question about will self-driving car nanodegree graduates be eligible for Udacity Blitz? And my understanding is the hiring is might be a bit different for this nanodegree than others.
Yeah, so Udacity Blitz looks for, it depends on the projects they get. So for instance, right now they're doing some machine learning projects, and I believe that people who did the self-driving car program, and especially our deep learning stuff, will be eligible to help out with some of these machine learning projects. We haven't focused on any self-driving car-based contracting projects through Blitz yet, but if and when we do, then definitely self-driving car graduates are helpful as well.
Okay, great. So something maybe to look for in future.
Yeah.
And there's a question about just recording this session. We're recording it live right now, and it's going to be up online to watch later in general. So it'll just be up. Let's see. As a reminder, we're just kind of here with the Self-Driving Car team. If you have any questions about content for this course, please post them in the chat. Let's see. So I have a question kind of about the projects. I'm thinking about these. There are a lot of open problems for self-driving car, whether that's like detecting lanes or training it to drive in a certain way. And how kind of robust are these projects to different solutions that students may input?
I'd say pretty robust. I mean, there is a rubric for each project. So each project has a set of criteria that must be met in order for the students to pass the project.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of those criteria, it's pretty open as to how they solve the problem for a lot of the projects. So, you can try a wide range of techniques and tactics to come to your own solution.
Yeah.
Reviewers will be able to give you feedback on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for instance, in the traffic sign classifier, we don't specify what your model architecture should be.
Mm-hmm.
We don't tell you what your hyperparameters should be. There's really open-ended bounds for you to explore and figure out for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Same way with the behavioral cloning project. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. As far as kind of the challenges, and especially for students that want to kind of go above and beyond, like you were saying, are there other resources that they can look to help them out with pursuing a more difficult problem? I have a question specifically about should they consider taking the AI nanodegree at the same time, or where do course materials overlap, and what can be the most helpful to tackle a really challenging problem?
Yeah, sure. So we're seeing students spending around 15 hours a week. The deep learning stuff is being more challenging. People have been spending 20 to 30 hours a week there. The AI is planned to take around 10 to 20 hours a week also. So based on that, figure out whether you have time. I think self-driving car is plenty challenging for now. So I would take one at a time. And a lot of, if you want to keep learning more, there's a lot of our courses that are free that you can take on your own. Our entire Georgia Tech catalog is free, and they have a bunch of Masters of Computer Science courses there. And we have a lot of links to additional resources in the class itself that'll give you plenty of things to do if you want to keep learning.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Another question about the hiring partners. As far as what they might be looking for in a student, are they looking for people with kind of general programming talent for tackling these sorts of self-driving car problems, or are they looking for roles higher up? Like, where do you think someone who graduates from this program might fall into a role at one of these companies?
Right. So it does depend on the phase of the company. So for companies that are just ramping up their self-driving car teams from scratch, so NextDB is an example, they're looking for more senior engineers to build their team around, so people with programming experience, software experience. Other teams are closer to a production stage where they have their core team and they're looking for people who are willing to learn quickly and who are willing to join in more junior positions. So Mercedes-Benz, BMW are closer on that spectrum. So it depends on where you apply, and it depends also on your interest of what you want to do. Mercedes-Benz has told us they look for T-shaped people. By that they mean
T-shaped?
so they mean people who are broad and have an understanding of the full self-driving car stack, which you'll get by doing this program. And they also want people who specialize in an area, which you'll be focused on doing yourself if you want to stand out more. So if you say, I want to be the computer vision person at this company, we're giving you an introduction and we're giving you an idea of what the key challenges are. You'll want to build yourself out even further there to show that you can be the person to build your team around there.
Okay, that makes sense. So kind of across the board, from senior to lower level, and knowing a single topic very specifically can be a good strength.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I have another question about mentors, whether they're paid or volunteers. This is a multi-part question. What happens if they don't respond, and what kind of help are they supposed to offer, whether that's technical like coding, sort of guidance, or like actually making a correction?
Sure. Yeah, so mentors are paid. Yeah, mentors are paid. I guess the second part of the question, which things do they support? Like what sort of question?
The second, it's like 3 parts. So the second part was what happens if mentors don't respond.
If mentors don't respond, you should email student support and we will follow up.
Absolutely.
We definitely want our mentors to provide you the best support possible, and we're always working to improve the quality of this program. So yeah, please let us know, and we can work with you and with the mentor to get things figured out.
Mm-hmm. And then the third part was what kind of help do they offer, whether that's specific to coding, making corrections, or guidance.
So mentors provide a lot of pacing support, and they provide resources and answer questions. They can answer code questions and technical questions on there. If it's a sort of extensive technical question, it's probably better to answer or to ask the question on the forums because those are the kinds of things that can take a long time for somebody to think about in order to solve and provide help for you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, they can provide all kinds of support. They can answer your questions about deadlines and give you guidance about things in the program. But as for really technical things, those are probably better asked on the forums.
Okay, makes sense. As far as pacing, which you said mentors sometimes do help out with, how long are people really expected to spend going through this content? How long do they spend? Is there a difference there?
Yeah, I mean, it depends a lot on the background that you have when you come into the program. As Drew said, also it depends on the part of the content that you're in. The machine learning content has been more challenging for students.
Mm-hmm.
So the time can range anywhere from 10 hours a week up to 20 or 30 hours a week if you're stuck on a really challenging part of the problem or something. So.
Yeah, there's a good forum question on this, and people are all posting how much time they're spending. So check out our forums, and you'll see people's thoughts on this too.
Mm-hmm. I have a question about the Udacity self-driving car. Are we aiming at a completely autonomous car that can drive in a variety of situations, whether that's sort of residential streets or motorways? And will it need like pre-compiled maps, or is it just going to be able to be placed in a setting and be able to drive?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're first aiming for the same kind of autonomy that a Tesla Autopilot has, so focusing on highways and well-marked roads. So our initial goal is to go up to San Francisco on a road called El Camino from our city of Mountain View. So we're not aiming at full urban yet, but our first step is definitely what Tesla and stuff have. And sorry, there was a second part to that question.
It was about kind of using pre-compiled maps.
Yeah.
Which it sounds like if that's the level, then yes.
Yes. So we're buying maps right now.
You're buying them?
Yeah. So we buy them from third-party folks,
Okay.
and we're also building our own maps as we drive, so that the car gets an idea of where it is in the world. So it's a combination.
I'm curious about this is buying maps. Is it not something that you can just get from Google Maps?
No. So the maps we buy are radar and lidar maps.
Oh, gotcha.
So they have additional point cloud data that the standard Google Maps doesn't have.
Maybe you could talk a little bit more about lidar and radar, as I know that sensory part is coming a bit later in the course.
Yeah. So what our first term focuses on just camera-based approaches, and the reason we focus on camera-based approaches is car companies are trying to explore using very cheap camera sensors to do a lot of the driving. So Auto is trying to do this. NVIDIA did this in one of their big papers. But there's also, if you've seen the Tesla's Autopilot, if you see most production self-driving cars today, they use some radar or LiDAR. And combining radar LiDAR data is going to be very important for the extra redundancy and extra safety you need to actually make sure you're doing well in different conditions. So that's what Term 2 is focusing on. But again, LiDARs can be quite expensive. For instance, the VLP64 you see on top of the Google self-driving cars, those can cost anywhere up above $70,000. So
more expensive.
Way more expensive.
Car itself.
So companies are trying to see if they can avoid that level of
using cameras.
Yeah. And radars. Yeah.
There's a question about the event being held next week for November students. I believe that's around here. Do you know more about that? What to expect?
It's at the Computer History Museum. We we are going to have Sebastian Thrun talking with Axel Gurn, who heads Mercedes-Benz's autonomous vehicle department. In addition, you'll get to meet all your fellow peers. You'll get to ask us questions about the program. We have another special guest coming who is very exciting that we will announce shortly.
A mystery?
A mystery guest. But it'll be a great way to meet real faces who are working with you and recreate that atmosphere you get in a physical experience.
Mm-hmm. There's also someone that says congrats basically on the DARPA Grand Challenge video, which I believe is that the steering angle challenge?
The Sebastian's old Stanley.
Oh, can you talk a little bit more about that? And maybe don't.
Yeah, sure. So the way the way Sebastian in particular got involved in this whole field was, I don't remember the exact date, but there was a DARPA Grand Challenge where the goal was to do an autonomous vehicle driving through the desert, and you had to compete against a bunch of different teams, most of which were university teams. Sebastian's team from Stanford ended up winning the challenge, and many of the folks you'll see in that DARPA Grand Challenge video are the same ones who are leading the efforts at, say, Uber now, Mercedes-Benz, and they've all gone to start this new industry. So it's pretty cool to see where it came from and where it's headed.
Yeah, sort of thinking about where this technology is headed, what do you two think about kind of the future of self-driving cars? Do you think it will happen in the near future that a lot of cars are going to be doing this? And maybe also if emergency vehicles would be self-driving, since they have sort of different rules, like breaking the rules in certain circumstances? What do you think is going to happen with this technology?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think we've seen clear commitment from some of the leading auto manufacturers that they are going to do this. So Ford has committed to, by 2021, having a fleet of Ford self-driving cars.
A fleet?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do they go travel together in packs?
I mean, they want them to be kind of like this Uber model where you don't own the car, but there's a fleet of Ford cars that you can use as you go.
Okay.
Tesla's already committed to all its new cars have autopilot technology out the door, or self-driving car technology out the door. So the kind of markers have been set. I think it's going to happen, and the President Obama already committed to regulation. We'll see what our new president does, but there's clear signals from the government that they're ready to embrace this. It's clear that the technology is already capable of a lot. Yeah. So I think it's inevitable. It's a question now of reducing the cost, and that's what a lot of these camera-based techniques are about. Improving the capacity to handle extraneous events, like some of the accidents that Tesla saw. And yeah, so there'll be a lot more we learn over the next couple of years, but I think it's pretty clear that it's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add. I think that pretty much covers it. You can see, like, there's so much work being put into it right now. It's sort of inevitable.
Yeah. What do you think are going to be some of the biggest challenges in future as this technology grows?
I think some of the biggest challenges will be that a lot of companies that used to have clearly delineated parts of this whole transportation sector are going to start being at loggerheads with each other. So, for instance, Tesla used to just think of itself as selling cars. It's clear from what Elon Musk does is that he wants to get into ride sharing too. And Uber, which used to have this whole contractor model, is now clearly moving in self-driving car direction too. They're going to be in loggerheads. Auto manufacturers are trying to figure out where their roles are. So I think the analogy they use is the cell phone movement. They don't want to be the dumb hardware player. So they don't want to be an LG or a Samsung, but they want to be the ones also providing the software, which is where the value is. So a lot of companies that were kind of on their own course earlier are now suddenly finding themselves at an intersection point. So it'll be very interesting to see who ends up winning and what ends up coming out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of imagining these self-driving cars that you can call up, and then if they need to go to the shop, they just take themselves to get repaired. So that's a really interesting problem. There's a question about is Tesla being considered a hiring partner? It seems like maybe not, but I can see why you think that. If the
Yeah. So nothing to announce there yet, but we're working on it.
Mhm. All right, we're getting close to the end of the session, so please keep asking questions in the chat. As far as you guys, I kind of want to ask about the structure of the content in the course and how the flow was decided from going to sort of lane detection to learning and how you make these connections.
David, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I don't know that much about it, so maybe it's something.
Okay, yeah. So I think the way we did it was we started with the projects of saying, here's what we want students to be able to showcase to employers, and we showed those to potential employers and said, would you hire people who have these skills? By skills we mean these projects. And then we worked back from how do we teach people the skills they need to do these projects. And so the first term we focused on, like we said, camera-based techniques around self-driving cars, so advancements in deep learning, advancements in computer vision techniques for detecting lane lines and things like that. The second term, we're going to focus more on more traditional techniques that companies use, like sensor fusion, localization. And then the last term, you're going to work on path planning and then a few other things before you actually run your own code and teams on the car.
Okay, great. Kind of related to the fact that we bring in industry partners and experts in the field, and even Sebastian to talk about these subjects. What do you think is one of the biggest strengths of being able to reach out to experts in our classes and have them talk about?
Yeah. So for me, it's that when I was in college, there was always a disconnect between what I learned and what was actually required for employers and on the job. Professors aren't necessarily the right people to teach you job relevant skills. They're great for research, they're great for theory, but they may not always be right for understanding what's happening in industry. I think our connection to industry makes it so that whatever you're learning is we know something that's actually being used in the field today. And so so your first day on the job will feel ideally very familiar because we actually are working with these folks.
I think that sort of plays into our primary goals as a company. We're really interested in getting students jobs, and so we want to make sure that the content that we're developing is as close to making students job ready as possible. So.
Yeah. There's a question, will Sebastian be teaching any of the modules in this term?
Sebastian will be in term 2, not in the first term, unfortunately.
Okay. There's also a question specifically about content, asking if there are Python notebooks with complete answers available for each project, because the idea is it would benefit students if they can compare their answer to the solutions. And I think logistically that's very difficult because if there's solution code out there, then it's really hard to prevent people from cheating from that. So we do not provide solutions as far as I know. If you are struggling, you want to ask in the forums, and the way this course is structured, you'll get very detailed feedback from each project you submit, so you will know if you've done it correctly or not.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of labs in between. So labs are assignments that you don't submit, but we give you solutions for them. So those are things you can use as checkpoints to say, like, I have a solution here, I have a solution here, and then you kind of put them all together to make the project.
What are some examples of those labs?
Yeah, so in the deep learning section, we have a lab where you recreate the net, which is like famous convolutional network architecture, and we have a full solution for that. Another lab is in the deep learning section. We ask you to build a simple one-layer one-layer network, not convolutional. We have a solution for that. So those are examples of labs we have with solutions.
Right. Okay. So projects that you can check your answers on that are at a smaller scale than the larger projects at each term. Okay, great. So how did you two get really interested in self-driving car, working on this content?
So I came from the data analyst nanodegree program, and before that I was in school, I went to grad school, and then worked as a researcher for a little while. And I don't know, self-driving car started here and it seemed like there was an opportunity to join the team. It seems like a very exciting field to look in. So, yeah. I'll get into it.
Yeah, so similar story for me. I did my master's in AI and machine learning stuff. And so this was always a field I was interested in, and we luckily happened to be doing something in it. So that's how it worked out for me.
Definitely. So also one thing I've noticed is that there's so much kind of excitement around this nano degree compared to other ones. My assumption would be just because it is this emerging field. What do you think is the reason why people are so excited about this?
Yeah, I think what's unique about this is, let's say compared to front-end nanodegree, or like any kind of standard like back-end, front-end, those are skills that you know the field well, it's kind of well established, the entire industry is fairly well established, and so you're not really coming in and building it from scratch. Here it's like a whole new field that's being built, and you get to be part of this revolution that's actually building it from the beginning, and it's not an opportunity most people have had before. So I think what we're doing is we're taking things that's something that right now is only being shaped by a few PhD students and like CMU and Stanford, and now we're opening that opportunity out to a lot more people who may not have those, may not be at Stanford and CMU. So it's a bigger opportunity to shape a much bigger field, and we're for it.
Yeah, I agree. And again, we're really close to the end of the session, so maybe like one or two more questions. I'm wondering kind of about, it's great that we're reaching a larger audience. I'm thinking about if there's thousands of students, how come we don't just let people enroll continuously? How come we don't continuously grow our base of students? Why is there a limit?
In terms of why do we have an application process where...
Yeah, and as far as like accepting only, I mean, I say only, even though it's a big number, only 1,000 students.
Right.
Well, I mean, part of the reason is that we want to make sure that we scale this program in a way that we can provide the best resources for all the students who are enrolled, mentorship and reviews and things like that. And then also, because of the sort of special nature of the program and the material, we also want to make sure that the students who are coming into the program are prepared, have the right background to be successful.
Right. Yeah, and we also want to make sure that students are dedicated, because it's not going to be an easy program, and we want to create a community that's of dedicated people who are very passionate, and that does mean we have to say no to some people.
That makes sense. Okay, we're about at the end of the hour. Any sort of closing statements or advice you might give the general November student?
No, just I think the general things that we've talked about, make use of, from my standpoint, make use of your resources. Please, reach out to your mentors and your reviewers, and enjoy the fellow student community. And I think that's there if you have any questions.
Yeah, likewise. We're really excited to have you. Thank you for doing this. I want to make it clear we're very open to feedback, so if there's anything you think we can improve or something you would like to see differently, don't hesitate to reach out. There are going to be parts that are hard, and that's part of becoming a self-driving car engineer. It's never going to be easy, and it's not meant to be easy. So be ready for the hard parts, but you'll make it through with all the community and the resources you have here.
Okay, great. Thanks for tuning into this live chat, and maybe tune into the one later today, or and if you have any remaining questions, probably email Self-Driving Car Support. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.